Hello and welcome to episode 60 of 10,000 Stitches podcast, a weekly chit-chat all about the joys of small-scale knitting. My name is Andy, and I feel like it's been a hot minute since I sat down to record, even though I recorded a clip for something else just this morning, so there's that. Anyway, my name is Andy, and if you wanted to find me on the interwebs, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Ravelry as Purlbug, P-U-R-L-B-U-G. You can find my blog at thepurlbug.com, and we have the 10,000 Stitches podcast group on Ravelry. If you're looking for links to anything that I mentioned today, any shops or patterns or anything like that, I will link, if you're watching this on the blog, on the post on the blog or the Ravelry thread, everything will be linked right below the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, there will be a link in the description box to the blog post, and then you can go there, and all the links will be below the video. I am currently recording on Sunday, March 12th, and this episode will go up on Tuesday, March 14th. So yeah, crazy that it's mid-March already. Whoa. But anyway, and I will just apologize ahead of time in case the heat in my apartment comes on while I'm recording, because it's kind of noisy, but there's not much I can do about it because it has suddenly gotten real cold here again. I know last time I recorded I was talking about how warm it was and how great it was and how much I was enjoying it, and now it's cold again, so there's that. But whatever. It also means the apartment is very cold right now. We keep our heat set at 65 degrees, so it is pretty chilly in here by the time the heat kicks in. And so, yeah, I'm a little cold right now because it's sitting right about at 65 degrees. Anyway, let's talk about the knitting stuff you're going to see this week. I have a pretty normal episode. We'll talk about finished objects, what works in progress, what's coming up next. We'll talk about some dyeing. We'll talk about knit-alongs and giveaways and stuff, and question of the week, and then we'll do some chit-chat. And I feel like my glasses are really dirty, and I meant to clean them before I sat down to record, but I didn't, so now I'm going to clean them while I'm talking. So, let's see, finished objects. I have 3 finished objects to show you guys this week, and that sounds like a lot, but it actually, it is and it isn't, because one of them was, because it's been 2 weeks, and one of them was mostly done when I talked to you guys last, and only one of them is like a new cast on that you guys haven't seen. So speaking of that one, actually I'll talk about that one first because I don't have it anymore. I recorded a clip a couple days ago before I put them in the mail, so I will go ahead and cut to past me right now. Hey guys, Andy from the past here, and I wanted to really quickly show you this finished object so that I can go ahead and get it put in the mail. If I'm recording like I usually do, it's Sunday when I'm normally recording. Right now it's Thursday. And yeah, I just finished this project up last night, and I want to get it in the mail because these are my mom's birthday socks, and her birthday is this weekend. So if I get them in the mail this morning and they go out today, hopefully they'll be there Saturday, so they'll be there in time. But yeah, I'll stop keeping you guys in suspense. And no, you know what? I'm going to keep you in suspense just a little bit longer. So these were made with some hand-dyed yarn that I did over Christmas, and it's this very sort of sunshiny yellow color, which is a little bit washed out on camera. Maybe I'll adjust the color a little bit in post-production, but yeah, that's the yarn, and these are the socks. So this is what it looks like knit up. Yeah, it's a little bit washed out, so I'll try and tone that down a little bit. But the pattern that I used for this cable on the side is Mirkwood, and so it's just a cable running down the outside of each sock. Here's the other one. So you can see the cable runs down the opposite side of each sock, and I made sure to twist it in opposite directions. And other than that, it's, my sort of basic sock that I make. Cast on 68 stitches, 15 rows of 2x2 rib, did the cable from the pattern, heel flap and gusset, and then down to the foot. So yeah, and I did 3 repeats of the cable on the leg, and the pattern repeat is 18 rows, so that's 54 rows on the leg after the ribbing, and then I did 7 repeats total, and then a little bit before the toe. So I can show that. So as you can see, I stopped with the cables a decent amount before I started my toe decreases. I think I could have probably fit in another twist of the cables if I really, oh, come on. If I really would have wanted to. But I didn't because because I'm assuming she's going to wear this on the outside of her foot, like with the cable on the outside, I didn't want there to be a cable like right where her pinky toe would be. So I figured I would continue sort of the outline of the cable, but not do the cable twists themselves down by the toe. And I actually took sort of the pearls at the edge of that cable all the way up to the toe decreases. Come on. Mostly just to kind of keep the continuity of the pattern. Let's see if I can. I have my camera settings pulled up so that I can actually manually focus. There we go. So yeah, I did that. And then you might have noticed this already, but I wanted to add just a little pop of color to these. I know I'm out of focus. So what I did, and I've done the whole, contrasting color, heel flap and heel turn before, which I like, and it's not too bad. I don't mind doing that. But I didn't, the problem with that is typically I will cut my yarn, and so I didn't want to do that this time. Oh, come on, you were focused. There we go. Typically I'll cut my main yarn to do that, and this time I didn't want to do that. So instead I did just the heel turn in this contrasting color, and that worked really well because like I said, normally I will cut my main color, do the contrasting color, and then reattach my main color, which means that I have 2 extra ends to weave in. But with this, you don't have to because your main color kind of comes back to where it starts, so you can just pick it right back up. Hopefully that made sense. But yeah, so I just wanted that little itty bitty pop of color to break up, all the yellow. And this contrasting color is some leftover yarn from PhD Yarns in their Quantum Dots colorway. I made a pair of socks out of this over Thanksgiving, I think. So this might look familiar, but yeah, I just thought that little bit of like blue, and it's got a little bit of pink in it too. It's kind of this like speckled, really pretty speckled yarn. And I thought it would just pop really well with the yellow. So yeah, that's that. I'm super excited about these socks. I'm hoping my mom will love them. And I don't have to worry about ruining the surprise or anything because this episode won't go out till Tuesday, and she will for sure have them by Tuesday, and I'm sure that she will have opened the package by then. So yeah, like I said, I'm going to go up to the post office now and get these in the mail so that I won't be late with her birthday gift. But yeah, that's one finished object, and I guess now we will head back to, well, still past me to you guys, but future me to me right now. So back to you, future me. Thanks, past me. Okay, so that's that. And then let's talk about the other ones that I do have here. One of which apparently I forgot to grab. So I will talk about the one that I do have here, and then I'll go grab the other ones in just a second. So one of them is what I was calling my Weasley hat, which was sort of this scrap yarn hat that I was making out of a whole bunch of sock yarn scraps. And so this is done. As a reminder, this was knit on US size 6s, which are a 5mm needle, 4mm needle. I forget exactly what the size is. But anyway, I cast on 120 stitches. I did 30 rows of 2x2 rib, and then joined my cast on edge. You can kind of see that there. To make a nice thick squishy folded brim, because I really like that on my hats. I know, you can just fold up the brim, but I don't like dealing with that. I like to know that it's exactly the same length all the time, that I don't have to worry about it. So I did that, and then I did a garter ridge panel that was 28 stitches wide. And so I did that for 20 garter ridges, so I guess 40 rows worth of just round and round and round knitting. Using up a bunch of scraps. So basically, as soon as one yarn ran out, I just grabbed another little scrap that I had, because I had a whole bunch of just little, maybe 10 to 15 gram balls worth of yarn. So you can see that it's just crazy colors, and I was holding them double. And so this hat is mostly Patton's Croy, and then like some Regia and Opal, like sort of the more rustic feeling sock yarns. And then I started just doing decreases. I sort of did the same way that the decreases are done on the 2x2 hat, which is where instead of doing kind of a spiral, you do sort of like a box pattern, which I thought was going to turn out really well, and instead turned out a little bit weird and boxy. But I don't really like I was really sort of disappointed in it at first and wasn't really very happy with it. But, you know, the fact is that when it's on my head, for one thing, I can't see the back when it's on my head. So it doesn't really make any difference to me. And I can kind of turn. And I mean, I guess I don't think it looks that bad once it's actually on. I think it's one of those things that looks a little weird when it's, you know, not on a head, but when it's on a head, it looks fine. And like I said, I can't see it anyway, and I don't care. And all I really care about is, does it keep my head warm? Which it really does, because of the nice, thick, squishy folded brim. So yeah, I am overall happy with it, or well, I'm content with it. I will probably do it differently if I make another one. But yeah, that's one finished object. And I'm going to, I guess, pause, and I'll go ahead and save this little clip here and go grab the other ones, and I'll be right back with my other finished object. I'm back. And I just checked, a US 6 is a 4mm needle, so yay. I think it's an 8 that's a 5mm. So, okay, my last finished object is my murder mystery socks. So I know this isn't like super new and exciting because I had a finished one, this was a half object when I talked last, and I think I was working on the heel of the second one. So you guys have sort of already seen these, but we'll rehash, right? So this is made with some Patons Kroy flax that I overdyed. You can see the original flax color is, actually the heel is done in just plain flax, and so you can kind of see what I did with it. I started with a sort of red ombre on the top, and then it went into sort of a dark brown black ombre on the bottom. And the only sort of like pattern detailing or anything on these is just this little cable, which is on the back. So it's a basic 3-strand cable that I just sort of made up on my own, more or less. It's 6 stitches wide, I think. It's 6 stitches wide. And basically I did the cable twists every third row. So there's 2 rows in between cable twists. And yeah, I just did it in a pattern that would resemble a 3-strand braid. Otherwise, it's a completely vanilla sock, sort of my normal heel flap and gusset vanilla sock. 64 stitches on a US 1, which is a 2.25mm needle. And yeah, this is the finished pair. So they actually did come out very similar. Even though it was, 2 separate skeins of yarn that were dyed. Well, they were dyed at the same time, but obviously, they could have had variations between the two. But yeah, I think they came out remarkably similar, and I haven't worn them yet because I was waiting to finish, or to talk about them on here. So I haven't worn them since I finished them, and so now I'm super excited that I get to wear them. And I think these will be like the perfect pair of socks to wear with like my Birkenstocks, because yes, I wear socks with sandals because they're Birkenstocks. And so yeah, I think these will be perfect for that. They're just thick enough that they'll keep my feet warm, but the Birkenstocks let my feet ventilate, so I'm super excited to wear them. Sweet. So that's it for the finished objects. So let's talk works in progress. Again, I have another I sort of have 2 half objects to show for works in progress. One of them is the pair of socks that I was making for Wesley, which I know I've shown a couple of times now. These are the mock cable socks, and I keep forgetting who the pattern designer for this is, but it's the mock cable socks. And let's see if I can get you guys a good look at what the patterning looks like, because it kind of really has to be stretched out for you to really see it. There we go. Oh, there we go. So that's what that looks like, and obviously it would probably be more visible on a yarn that isn't quite so dark. But yeah, the yarn itself it's a Regia 4-ply in like the gray colorway. I've shown it a couple of times. It's just a basic sort of gray yarn. These are for Wesley, so he picked out the yarn, and I was like, okay. So yeah, I finally buckled down and got this one done. This is a 68 stitch sock done on US size 1s, 2.25mm needles. Yeah, and other than that, it's pretty vanilla. I just used that sort of stitch pattern on the top, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm not loving making these socks. It's not that I don't want to make Wesley another pair of socks, because he is super knitworthy. He loves all the socks that I've made him. So it's not as if I don't want to make him socks. And it's not as if there's anything wrong with the stitch pattern itself. Like, it's fine. It's a little boring, but I mean, it's fine. I don't know. I don't love this yarn. Like, it's a little bit splitty in sort of a weird way. and it's hard for me to sort of like, because it's so dark, it's hard for me to like count my rows on it and stuff. So I'm just not loving these socks, but I'm gonna finish them because Wesley wants them, and so, you know, and I like him, so I will just get through it. It's definitely a product knit and not a process knit. But yeah, so these are 20 rows of ribbing, and then about 6 rows of leg, heel, foot. Boom. And I've started the second one. I haven't picked it up in the past couple of days, but I'm not very far on it. I just have a little bit of the cuff done. But I really would like to get these done, you know, by the end of the week, because they're kind of just like a monkey on my back at this point, and it's like, just get them done. They've been in progress forever, so I just need to finish them. But yeah, so that's one thing. That's one work in progress. And then the other one is, again, another sort of half object. Yeah, it's a sort of half object, and I talked about these last time I recorded. These were sort of in the up next sort of category, so now they are a reality. And these are a pair of hand warmers, and I'm actually not doing the hand warmers that I said I was going to do, which was the Mary warmers. Mostly just because I'm a little bit obsessed with cables right now, and I wanted to do just one more cable pattern. So instead, I started looking for cabled patterns, and I said last time that these might be for my brother's lady friend, who it turns out is not his lady friend anymore. So at this point, I don't know who they're for. I'm sizing them to fit my hand, but the nice thing about them being hand warmers is that the sizing is not as specific, and they're very stretchy. So I might just put them in like sort of a gift pile and just save them for when I need a gift for someone. But anyway, so I started looking for cabled hand warmer patterns, and I found the traveling cable hand warmers, or mitts or whatever, from Pearl Soho. And if you guys remember, I made the traveling cable hat a while ago, and it was the one that turned out way too small and didn't fit me, and I sent it to a friend of mine for his daughter, and she loved it. But yeah, so I really liked the pattern though. So they have the mitts. The problem is the pattern for the mitts is written for sport weight yarn. And I don't have any, well, I have like one skein of sport weight yarn, but I don't have needles for it. Like I don't have needles in the proper size for it. So it's like, okay, I can probably adapt this to a fingering weight yarn. And I did. And I will link to my pattern page or my project page for these, because I made extensive notes there about how I adjusted the stitch count, and how I adjusted the like the pattern, the cable pattern for those, to make it work for fingering weight yarn on the size 1.5 needles. So I will link to that if you're curious and want to try it yourself. If you remember from when I did that hat, I had because Pearl Soho only gave written directions for this cable pattern, and I don't like written directions, so I had actually turned it into a charted pattern. And again, I did that for these because I added another repeat, so I even have that chart on my project page if you really want to try them. But yeah, so these are done using some yarn that I dyed up over Christmas. It is the yarn that I was attempting to dye black and didn't come out black, but it came out this sort of very dark brown color, and it's got some white and like a little bit of blue sort of, where, you know, you can tell that the dye has broken. But I just think it's so pretty. It's funny, this reminds me of a yarn that I had bought forever ago when I was only using like acrylic yarns. And I had bought this yarn that was like, I thought it was like a mint chocolate chip colorway. Like that's what it made me think of, because it was sort of like, had that mint green and like some cream and then dark brown. And I just loved it so much. And I think I actually never wound up doing anything with it, because I just loved it so much. And at the time I just didn't have the skills in my repertoire to turn it into something good. But this reminds me of that. So anyway, this is what it looks like. I currently have one all the way done except for the thumb. So this is the right one. It's finished except for needing the thumb put on. I actually haven't even cut off the yarn from my bind off edge because I didn't have scissors handy, so I have to make sure I don't pull that out. But yeah, this is, let's see if I can hold this up. This is what it looks like. There we go. I had to switch it to my other hand so that this could be on the palm side, but it's obviously sort of a busy yarn for the pattern, and there we go. It kind of looks better from a distance, and it looks way better in person because it's of course getting a little bit washed out on camera. But yeah, the cable pattern is noticeable in person. Despite the fact that the yarn is a little bit busy for a cable pattern. If I were to make these again, I'd probably do it with a more solid yarn, but I really am loving the results regardless, because it's sort of subtle, and it's it's got a nice texture to it. And I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, like I said, all the details for this are on my project page, but basically it's 10 rows of 2x2 rib, and then on the back of the hand, I sort of increased some stitches so that I would accommodate this pattern. And there's 2 repeats of the pattern, and then you start doing the thumb gusset, and I talk about how I did the thumb gusset. And so the thumb gusset takes up another 2 repeats worth of pattern, and then you do 1 more repeat of the pattern, and then 10 rows of 2x2 ribbing, and then you bind off. And so obviously, like, I could have done more to have it be a longer arm, but I just, right now it's sort of, it covers your wrist, and it comes up to above my knuckles, and I have very large hands for a woman, so when I was starting these and making these thinking these were for someone else, they would work well on someone else's hands too, like someone who has smaller hands than me. And I did the 2x2, I continued the 2x2 ribbing up the palm of it. So that way, again, so that it would fit a wider range of hand sizes and be more, accommodating if someone has a bigger hand or a smaller hand, either way. So yeah, I am really loving these. I will probably get the thumb on this one done today, and then I'll get the other one done. And like I said, I'll probably just put them aside to be gifts for someone at some point. But yeah, it's a 68 stitch, sort of a 68 stitch hand warmer knit on US size 1.5s, which are a 2.5 millimeter needle. And I'm knitting these magic loop on my Addy Sock Rocket Turbo, whatever these are. So yeah, so that's that. And those are my works in progress. And so let's talk about what's coming up next. I was watching another podcast, which I'll actually talk about later, but I was watching a podcast this week where the host was saying that she wasn't going to keep, like, in her sort of like what's coming up next segment, she wasn't going to keep repeating things, which sort of made me realize that sometimes I do that a lot. And so I'm going to try and not do that, because I realize that gets really boring from week to week. And so she was saying that she's only really going to talk about like things that are new sort of things, or things that are maybe going to be cast on very soon. And so I'm going to kind of adopt that a little bit. I do have something to talk about. And that is that I know I said I wasn't going to do this at any point. I know I said that I'm not a garment knitter, but I'm really thinking about knitting a sweater. As you can see, I'm wearing this is a store-bought knit sweater, but I do wear sweaters a lot, and I tend to wear lighter weight sweaters because they kind of work well with the weather here, and with the fact that, I'm inside, I'm outside, and, the fact that it's air conditioned inside, but it's warm, whatever. So I tend to really like sort of lightweight knit sweaters. And so I think I'm going to knit myself a sweater. I never expected to do this, but I think I'm going to. So the pattern that I'm really looking at is the Flax Light pattern. For one thing, because it's written for fingering wet yarn. And another thing, it's unisex, which is great, because that means that if I get it one knit up and Wesley likes it, I could knit one for him as well. And it's not like I have to go find a new pattern. And it's free. Did I mention that? It's free, so I like that. Especially, sort of for my first foray into sweater making, I would like to try and keep it as like low barrier to entry as possible. And the only reason I haven't started one yet is because I don't have the needles for it. So I think it calls for US size 2 and a US size 5, which I think is a 2.75 millimeter for the 2 and a 3.75 millimeter for the 5. And I don't have any US 2s, and the only US 5 I have is a 16-inch that I bought when I was making the traveling cables hat. So I need to go get new needles, and that's the only thing that's keeping me from casting one on. But I think as soon as I get that done, I'm going to cast on probably one of these smallest size ones, like, because it goes all the way from like baby sizing up to like 3 or 4 XL. So like it's got a huge range of sizes for it. And so I think I'm going to cast on one of the baby ones, even though I don't have kids, obviously, and I don't even know anyone with babies. But that way it's, it's small, and it will let me finish it pretty quickly and kind of get a feel for what the pattern is like and what it's like to make an entire sweater and the finishing and everything. And it will help me to figure out my gauge, because I've mentioned before that I'm a very tight knitter. And so And like I said, I don't have needles in these sizes, so I don't want to have to go out and buy a whole bunch of needles. So I'm probably going to go buy a US 2 and a US 5 and knit the child size and see what my gauge is. And then I will just adjust the size that I knit based on my gauge, rather than adjusting my gauge to the size that I want, if that makes sense. So as soon as I get needles, like I said, I'm going to cast on a child size one, and I think I'm going to do it striped using these two yarns. These are two yarns that I dyed myself that might look familiar if you've been around for a while. I made my broken seed stitch socks, my sort of watermelon socks, out of these two. So this one's obviously green, and this one's sort of like a hot pink. And so I thought, yeah, I would just do a simple striped sweater, probably then for a little girl. But yeah, and I'll just, again, hang on to it, put it in a box for when someone I know has a baby, or when someone like my mom knows has a baby or something like that, a grandkid or something. And yeah, I'll just do that. But I think that will be a lower risk way to kind of ease into making a sweater without committing a ton of time and materials to it, and then having it turn out to be, you know, too big or too small or something. So yeah, that is something that is, I think I'm gonna do it. I think I'm gonna make my first sweater. So maybe I'm crazy, but I want to. And I think these two colors would be so cute for a little baby sweater. So yeah, if nothing else, if I decide that it's not for me, at least I'll get a cute little baby sweater out of it. But yeah, so that's what's coming up next. Otherwise, like, I have stuff in my queue, but I really, like I said, I really want to try and get these socks for Wesley finished and get these hand warmers finished before I think too hard about anything else. So I'm going to pause and save, and then I'll be back to talk about some yarn dyeing that I've done, and then we'll move into knit-alongs and giveaway talk. Yarn dyeing. I honestly don't remember if I talked about this in either episode 59 or 59 and a half, but I wound up placing an order for a whole bunch of yarn from Craftsy because they were having like a 50% off sale, I think, on all of their like bare yarn and stuff. And so I couldn't pass that up. And so I ordered a whole bunch of yarn. I ordered like $240 worth of yarn, a lot of yarn, enough to make 40 socks worth of yarn. And so what I wound up ordering was 20 skeins of the Superwash Merino Nylon blend that I had been using. That was the same base that my mom got me for Christmas that I dyed up all that stuff on. So this yarn is the same base. And I really like it. It's nice and soft. It's a good yarn. And so I wound up ordering 20 skeins, so two 20 packs. So this is, or two 10 packs. So this is the unopened pack. I've cracked the other pack open, and so I didn't want to bring that in here. And then I ordered 4 packs of the Highland Superwash Sock Twist. So this is an 80/20 Superwash Highland Wool 20% nylon. And the reason I ordered 4 packs of this is because it comes in 50 gram skeins. So each of these 10 packs is only 5 socks worth. So yeah, that's that. And again, the other ones are out in the other room. So one of them's open and the other ones are still sealed up. So yeah, that was super exciting. I got all of that on Monday, and you better believe that I right away cracked into it and dyed some yarn. So I wanted to try dyeing the Highland blend, the Highland Twist, whatever, because, you know, I have experience with the merino one. I kind of know how it takes dye, so that one I wasn't quite as concerned about, and not concerned, but curious about. So I did wind up dyeing up 2 skeins of the Highland Twist, and these ones I dyed just using, I think, maybe like 1 or 2 drops of black food coloring, and it's not showing up very well. So it kind of looks like nothing, but I swear it is a color. It's just not showing up well. So it's sort of a light gray with just a little tinge of purple in it. And I'm trying to think what I could do to make it, here we go. So here it is against the bare yarn. So that I guess shows the color just a little bit better. You can kind of see the difference, because kind of on its own, if you're looking at it independently, it maybe doesn't look like much. But yeah, so I dyed up 2 skeins of that, and I'm super excited about these. It's a really super squishy, plump yarn. I mean, the merino is very plump and squishy too, but this is even more squishy and plump, and it's not as rough as I thought it would be. Like, it's maybe not like, I don't think I'd want to wear a sweater made out of it because it's not quite that soft, but I could definitely wear like a cowl made out of it or something. Like, it's not it's not like, oh, I can't have it against my neck rough, but it's maybe like I don't want my whole torso covered in it rough. But so this yarn is, like I said, 80% superwash Highland wool, 20% nylon, and it is 178 yards to 50 grams. So it's a fingering weight, but it's a plump fingering weight. And so it's definitely maybe more in the range of like, well, the yardage is more in the range of like a Patton's Croix, in terms of, you know, having a little bit less yardage per 50 grams. But I'm super excited. These are something that I want to cast on to make a pair of socks with them after I finish up everything else. And I will probably just make a pair of like blueberry waffle socks with this. And I think it will just work really well with this yarn. But yeah, so that's that. And then again, I don't remember, I'm pretty sure I showed this on episode 59, but I just wanted to really quickly show again this yarn, the cherry blossom yarn that I dyed up, because I realized that I wasn't showing it in the best conditions last time. So this is what the final skein looks like, and I apologize for the ties on it. I haven't taken them off yet, but it's this really pretty pale pink with a little bit of darker pink speckles on it. And so this one, I don't know what it's gonna be, but it is so pretty, and I just love it. I just can't even with it. So, speaking of the cherry blossoms, so it was so warm, and so they were predicting that the cherry blossoms in DC were going to come out early, and now it's been cold, and so that's been delaying them. And so I had been hoping that today maybe we could go up and look at them, but because it was so cold, anyway, my cherry blossom dreams may not come true this year. And so at the very least, I have my cherry blossom yarn to tide me over until next year. But yeah, so that's the final result of that. And then I have been a busy bee doing some dyeing the past couple of days because I took Thursday and Friday off of work. And so it gave me some time to get some dyeing done, and it gave me some time to record a dyeing tutorial. So, granted, I'm not like a pro or anything, but I felt like by now I have enough experience to kind of at least go through a basic tutorial of how to dye yarn in your kitchen using food safe dyes. So my goal, and it's edited, I just haven't uploaded it to YouTube yet, but my goal is that by the time this goes up, that will already be up. And it's a long tutorial, like it's maybe an hour and 15 minutes total, but it goes through sort of why use food safe dyes, kind of what to expect from your first skein of yarn, what supplies you need, how to prep your yarn, and then it goes through how to do the dyeing process separately for food dye and Kool-Aid, right? So depending on which one you're doing, you can watch either part. They're separate parts, so you don't have to sit through something that you're not interested in. And then I go through how to wash your yarn after it's done in the pot, and then I show. That's what I recorded this morning. I show the final results a couple of days later after the yarn has been dried fully. So, it's mostly meant to be an educational video or an informational video rather than an entertaining video, right? Like these are more so meant to be entertaining versus that's more so meant to be informational. So if it doesn't wind up getting a lot of views, like that's fine with me because it's more so just meant to be there as a resource for people who want to watch it. But it meant that I wound up doing a lot of dyeing. So I will really quickly show you guys some of the other yarn that I've dyed. And I'm actually not keeping any of this. So some of the yarn that I dyed was used to demonstrate sort of the gradient that you get, saturation gradient that you get depending on how many packages of Kool-Aid you use per 100 grams of yarn. So that's, I'm trying to get these arranged so I can hold them all easily. So that is these guys. So it's 4 of these 50 gram skeins of the Highland sock. So it's 200 grams total. And they are sort of in this, why is this not working? They are sort of in this saturation gradient, and they are like wiggly little worms in that they just don't want to like quite be held easily. So yeah, so it goes from a very light pale green to a much more saturated green. And again, it's not quite sure, maybe that's a little bit better. So that shows the gradient a little bit better. I can't hold them up too close or otherwise it will get blown out. But yeah, so that's the gradient. And I'm actually going to be giving these away for part of my 1,000 subscribers sort of huzzah. Because I mentioned last time that we passed 1,000 subscribers on YouTube and we passed 400 members in the Ravelry group recently. So those are good landmarks. I like that. So I thought that I would do a little giveaway for that. So that's this. Like I said, it's 200 grams worth of this 80% superwash Highland wool, 20% nylon blend. So 200 grams is, oh my gosh, I have to do some math. I can't do that math in my head. Bear with me. I'm pretty good at mental math, but I am not so good at multiplication mental math. I'm very good at addition and subtraction. So 178 times 4. So that would be 712 yards worth of yarn. So I thought that this would be a really fun gradient set. Like if you wanted to do like a shawl out of it, you could definitely do a shawl out of it, or like a cowl or a hat or a pair of taller socks. I thought this would be really great for that. You know, it's green, it's springy, it's St. Patrick's Day-y, I guess, even though I don't really care about that. You could make a little baby sweater out of it, I think, maybe. Like, I just thought it would be really fun, and so, yeah, I want to do that for the giveaway. So I will do this giveaway sort of similar to the way that I've done other giveaways, in that I don't want to limit it only to the Ravelry group, because I know not everyone is on Ravelry. I also don't want to limit it only to YouTube, because I know not everyone, you know, has a YouTube account. So the way I will set this up is I will have a little form on the blog post. So depending on where you're watching this, if you're watching this on the blog, just scroll down a little bit and it'll be there. If you're watching this on YouTube, like I said in the description box, there'll be a link to the blog post. Just click through on that. And in the Ravelry group, I will put a link to the blog post so you can go there. But I'll put a little form on the blog post where you can just enter your name, and I'll probably have some sort of like cute little question or something. I don't know what it is yet, but anyway, it'll be a pretty easy thing. You can just enter that and it'll send it to a spreadsheet, and that way I can pick a random number. And I guess maybe I'll do that before I record next time. So I will record next on, I have to look at my calendar here. I will record next on the 26th. So I guess I will run it through the night of Saturday, March 25th, and I'll probably take it off the morning of the 26th, and then I'll draw a winner and mention it next week or in 2 weeks when I record. So yeah, that's the prize. 200 grams worth of variously saturated green yarn. So yeah, then the other thing that I was doing in that tutorial, and this will kind of lead into something else I wanted to talk about, was I was also showing how to dye using food dye. And so this is the skein that I was dyed using food dye, and it's again not showing up very well. It's sort of a very pale purple lilac color. I wonder, maybe if I try this trick again, it will work better. There you go, now you can kind of see it. So that is the one that I dyed up using food coloring. So it's this very sort of tonal, beautiful lilac-y color, and it's a little bit more red. I'll probably try and adjust that where I was just holding it up. It's a little bit more pinky red in real life, but it is very blue toned. But yeah, so this is what I was using for the food dye. And like I said, I'm not keeping this either because I'm going to be sending this and another skein of yarn off to the Yarn to Table podcast. And I know I pimped her podcast a couple of weeks ago in like a really short little episode that I did. I talked about that I had been watching her podcast. It's Celeste. That I'd been watching her podcast and I was really enjoying it, and I still have been watching it and really enjoying it. You know, she keeps her episodes pretty short, like around an hour or so, and that's just like a really good length for me. So I've been keeping up with her podcast and really enjoying them, and she was one who was talking about the sort of like you know, what's coming up next thing. And so she's hosting her first knit along, and I forget exactly the details. I think it goes until April 30th, so there's, you know, plenty of time still. And the whole theme of it is, it's a sock knit along, and it is try something new. Like basically, you can kind of do whatever you want as long as you're doing something new, right? So if you have never done a cabled sock before, like you could enter a cabled sock, or if you want to try a new type of heel or a new type of toe, or there's other things too. I will link to the Ravelry page, or her Ravelry group, so you can go check that out. But anyway, I am going to be sending her some yarn as prize yarn for it. So that's where that's headed as soon as I can get it out in the mail. So yeah, like I said, I dyed up a whole bunch of yarn, and the only things I'm keeping are these ones. But that's okay because I have a lot left to dye up, and I have some ideas percolating around in my head for what I want to do with it, and I'm super excited. So yeah, that's that. I feel like I've been talking forever, but I just have so much to talk about today. But I'm going to pause really quick and save, and then I'll be right back and I'll talk about our knit along and question of the week, and then we'll move on to chit chat stuff. In terms of our knit along, the Garter or Something Yellow knit along now that's running from the start of March through the end of April. I know I put up episode 59 and a half, which sort of talked about the rules, and the threads are both up, the chatter and the finished object thread, and I checked, and today we have our first finished object. Woo! So that's super exciting. I am excited to see lots of yellow things. Like, I knit my mom those yellow socks, and she loved them, thought they were super bright and colorful. And yeah, I'm super excited to see what rolls in for this, be it yellow, be it garter details. I suppose maybe if I make a flax light, that sort of fits into that with the little like garter detailing down the arms. But yeah, I'm just super excited. I have no idea what the prize is going to be for it yet. I'm sure I will... I'm going to make it my goal to have it by the next time I record. But yeah, so just checking in on that. It's really crazy that by the time this goes up, we're like about a quarter of the way through it. But yeah, so that's that. And I guess we'll move on to question of the week. So question of the week this week is not exactly knitting related. Well, it's not really knitting related at all. It's more life related because sometimes I like to ask those kinds of questions. And so this week it is... my question is, how do you, I guess, cope or recover from or whatever, getting some news that maybe you don't want? Not necessarily like bad or like sad news, just like being told something and you're like, man, that is a bummer. I'll talk a little bit about this in the chit chat section, but I got some news like that. There's nothing wrong, I'm fine. But I got some news where it was like, man. And of course, I promptly remedied it with a whole bunch of Thai food, just, stuffing myself with carbs. But there's got to be better ways to deal with it. So help me find a better way to deal with getting some not so great news other than eating a ton of Thai food. I'm sure, there's got to be a better way to do this. But yeah, that's my question of the week this week is how do you recover from getting some news that you don't exactly enjoy hearing? And obviously sometimes the only way is, with a whole bunch of chocolate, but for the more like low key times, let's talk about how we deal with those, shall we? So yeah, I guess that's going to be it for the knitting stuff. So if that's all you were here for, thank you very much for hanging out with me, and I will see you in 2 weeks. Otherwise, let's do some chit chat. And I'm going to try and keep this a little bit shorter, mostly because my life has been kind of boring for the past 2 weeks. And, I just don't want to recount the past 2 weeks of my life. So I'm going to kind of hit the highlights, most of which happened within the past week. So it's been spring break here for the past week, and I'm super sad that it's back to work as normal tomorrow because I really was enjoying spring break because there's just no students around, there's no TAs around, it was nice and quiet. Like I said, I took Thursday and Friday off of work, so I just have had a super long, luxurious weekend, and I'm just sad about going back to work because it means going back to the responsibilities. But so over this past week, I think I mentioned this when I recorded last time. I am on this hiring committee for looking for a new faculty member, and so we have to do these phone interviews, and so I did both of my phone interviews, and that was kind of stressful. It wasn't like that bad, and I got through them just fine. And it definitely taught me, or has been teaching me, a lot about the other side of sort of this process, because I had only ever seen it before as the applicant, and now I get to see it from the hiring side, and I definitely understand certain things differently now. So I interviewed 2 people. I did 2 phone interviews, one on Friday, one on Monday so the Monday one was Monday of this past week, so Friday before that was the other one. And, these 2 people were very different in terms of kind of their interest in the job and, kind of how they handled the way the job was going to be. And it was very interesting because only one of them sent me like a follow-up thank you email, which, not gonna lie, when I was applying for jobs, I thought that was the dumbest thing. I was like, why do I have to do that? for like after an interview, I kind of understand because you're taking someone's time, but like I never really understood it otherwise. And I still don't think like you necessarily need to send a thank you email or like a follow-up email like before you've had an interview. I think that's kind of dumb. But like definitely looking at these two people, one of them was already a stronger candidate in my eyes than the other. And not gonna lie, the one that sent the thank you email was the stronger candidate, and now they are even stronger in my eyes. Because it's like, yeah, you know, you took some time out of my day, and I feel like that warrants an email, just a quick email saying, hey, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciated the opportunity. Can't wait to hear back from you, right? Like it's super short. It's 3 lines, 4 lines. Just write it and send it out. And so it's like I'm totally learning a lot from this, and it's really nice. It's been really great to be on the other side of things and really get to see, you know, the whole process, you know, now from the other side. So there was that. Then it was kind of a quiet week the rest of the time I was at work. And then, like I said, Thursday I was busy filming that dyeing tutorial pretty much all day. And then Friday was my day of bad news. So I don't know if I've talked about this before, but I have this really, really horrible fear of dentists. I really, really hate going to the dentist to the point where I haven't been, I know I've been since Wesley and I started dating, because I remember the last time I went to the dentist, he and I were dating, and I went to the dentist back home, back in Minnesota, and you know, I went to my normal dentist, and I remember sitting in the parking lot beforehand, like having a panic attack about it, and like I called him crying, like, and this is not like me being over dramatic. This is just how I am about dentists. You can poke and prod me anywhere else you want. Doctors don't bother me. Hospitals don't bother me. Dentists really bother me. I really don't like dentists. And so, you know, I hadn't been, except for one time when I was in grad school where I chipped a big chunk out of one of my teeth and had to go get it filled because there was a huge gaping hole in one of my teeth. But other than that, I hadn't been to the dentist in a really, really long time. So I finally got up the courage, because my insurance covers like basic dental stuff. Like it covers the x-rays and the basic exams and cleanings. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the dentist. If nothing else, I'm going to go and I'm going to get the x-rays done, and I'm going to at least have someone take a look at my teeth. So I called and made an appointment, and I told them, I'm like, I don't want a cleaning because I can't handle a cleaning. I will lose my mind. I just want the x-rays and the exam. And they're like, okay. And it's like, why didn't I realize before that you could do this? Like, so pro tip, if you don't like dentists, you can do this, right? Like if the cleaning is the problem, which is what it is for me, you don't have to have it done. Mind blowing. I had no idea. So now I really wish I had been doing that for the past couple of years, because I went, there's a siren going by. Take your time. Take your time. Go. Okay. Anyway, so yes, I wish I had been going. But anyway, so I went, and, you know, they did the x-rays, they took a look at my teeth, and I have bad teeth anyway, and that's probably part of why I don't like going to the dentist, because I have really bad teeth. And every time I go, they're like, oh, you have like 5 new cavities. And I'm like, well, thanks. And it's really interesting because, you know, I have a lot of fillings, and I mean, I think a lot of it's genetic because my dad has a mouth full of fillings too. Like he has really bad teeth. And so, you know, it's not as if like I don't drink soda. I don't, there's a lot of things that I don't do. I floss every day, right? So I do a lot of things good, and yet I still get a bunch of cavities. And so I think a lot of it has to be genetics. But what's really annoying is that, you know, it's not as if I have any pain, right? Like I'll go in and they'll be like, oh, you have a bunch of cavities. And I'm like, really? Because none of my teeth hurt. Like I had no clue that I had a bunch of cavities. Really? And so I'm not saying that like dentists are like scamming me or anything, but it is always very interesting that like I never have a clue ahead of time that I have cavities before I go to the dentist. But anyway, so yeah, so I went and they're like, yeah, you have like 10 cavities. I'm like, that's great. So, and unfortunately, you know, I said my insurance covers the basics. It does not cover things like fillings. For that, I have to go up to another tier of insurance, which increases the amount that I have to pay for my insurance. But my understanding is that I still have like a crazy high deductible. Like because I'm healthy and I'm young, I have a really high deductible health insurance because I don't ever go to the doctor, and so I'd rather pay less every month, like on a yearly basis, and bank on the fact that I'm healthy. So I'm pretty sure that even if I bump it up, I still have like a super high deductible, and it's still like, I'm still going to have to pay it out of pocket. So it really sucks because I'm going to have to pay a whole bunch of money out of pocket to get my teeth fixed. And so yeah, that's just like, it's fine because, she said like none of them are like dire, like I can wait a couple months, to save up the money and, get a prescription for Valium or something so I can handle the fillings a little bit better. But, so like nothing is like an emergency thing, but it's, it just is really frustrating because it's like, yes, I have the money for it. It's fine. I can do it. Like, but, of course I'd rather spend, $1,000 or however much it's going to cost doing anything else, like going home or, doing anything else. And so like, it's really frustrating from a financial standpoint, and it's really frustrating from like a health standpoint because, like I said, there's so many things I thought I was doing right. And then I still wind up with all these problems, right? Like it's just really frustrating that I have to put out all this money for something that I may not have a ton of control over in terms of like the genetic standpoint of it. And so yeah, that was just really frustrating news to hear. And it still just really is like upsetting to me because it seems like I can't win. It's something I hate. Like I hate the dentist, and then it really just seems like I can't win. I can do everything I'm supposed to do, and I still wind up with a mouthful of cavities. And so that's really frustrating to me. But yeah, so that was frustrating. But the day improved a little bit, right? So then we got Thai food to heal my hurting soul. And then, Friday evening, we went and saw the new King Kong movie, which was really good. I actually really hated the last King Kong movie that came out, the one with Jack Black in it. I thought it was horrible. It's the only movie I've ever gone to see in the theater and then walked out of because it was like 3 hours long. It was just way too long, and there was no action, and so boring. Anyway, this one is a heck of a lot better. If you are a fan of like Godzilla or Pacific Rim, like those kind of like large scale monster movies, I definitely recommend it. It was definitely worth it to see it in the theater because, seeing it on the big screen like really made it. So yeah, that was super fun. I really enjoyed that. And then yesterday we had a really great day as well. Wesley and I went to a bonsai workshop. Sorry, I have to move my legs because they're getting sore from sitting cross-legged for too long. So we went to this bonsai workshop at a greenhouse here it's not really in Richmond, but it's in the suburbs of Richmond. And it's this really great greenhouse. They have a ton of stuff. Like they have, just like a bunch of plants, like orchids and a whole bunch of like flowering plants, and they have a bunch of like bonsai starter plants and stuff like that. So we'd been there last weekend and saw a little flyer for like, this beginner bonsai workshop put on by the Richmond Bonsai Society. And so, we sent the guy an email being like, hey, are there any spots left? And there were, so we got in on it, and it was from like 10 to 12, I think, yesterday. And it was super fun because you went and you paid a fee, but then everything else was provided. You didn't have to bring anything. They just provided you with everything. So you went and you got there and you picked out your thing that would become a bonsai. And if you don't know anything about bonsai, basically they are, if you don't know what bonsai are at all, they're those little tiny, like ornamental tiny trees. And they look like they're not real, but they totally are real. They're real trees, and they're just normal trees. And the way that you get them to be tiny like that is you plant them in very small pots, right? So you kind of restrict how big the roots can get, and then that restricts how big the tree can get. And you also do some pruning, and there's all these sort of like aesthetic things that you do to like the way that you prune it and all of that. But yeah, they're just tiny trees. And so we were using juniper yesterday because juniper is a pretty hardy sort of bush plant thing, tree thing, that is good for beginners. And so you picked out your juniper bush, and at the beginning they were all sort of very bush looking, right? Because they were just nursery plants. They were plants that had been growing that were meant to be put in the ground, and we were going to turn them into bonsai. So you picked it out, and then they sort of talked about like how to like trim off, kind of how to like figure out what the shape of your bonsai was going to be, and then how to trim off the unnecessary bits to kind of shape it into what you kind of to work with the natural shape. And then we you could like wire it, like if you wanted it to like sort of bend into a particular shape, you can put wire around it. So we did that. We then took them out of their pots and like cut off a bunch of the roots so we could pot them into smaller pots, and so we repotted them. And yeah, so that was super fun, and I will try and put in some pictures kind of, or maybe I'll have been doing that already, sort of the process, like going from like beginning to end with these bonsai plants. And, you know, this is something that Wesley has been interested in since last summer probably, and we've both made several failed attempts at bonsai. And the thing is that it's very much like the long game, because, you know, once you kind of do these initial steps, then you just kind of leave it. Like you really just kind of have to like not do anything with it. It's not a fast process, right? Some of these bonsai are hundreds of years old. And so you just kind of have to take it at the pace that trees grow at. And so, you know, we just apparently weren't getting them the right start. Like Wesley has one that's been sitting outside since last summer that he kept in the big like nursery pot. And so that one's been doing fine. And he'll probably leave it like that for maybe another year or two before he transplants it. But so now with these ones that we got this weekend, you know, they've already been put into the smaller pots. So now it's just a matter of getting them over the shock of, you know, being aggressively pruned. But then we'll just kind of leave them for a while and not really do much with them and let them just kind of grow, and we'll just trim them as needed. But yeah, it's really fun, and plants are something that like I never really have gotten into until we moved out here. And you know, our lives are not really conducive to having pets right now, so instead we have brought in a bunch of plants, and that's something that Wesley has sort of introduced me to that's been really, really fun, and I've really been enjoying it. He has an orchid that's sitting over in the window right now that is just beautiful, and I'd like to maybe try orchids too. That's kind of fun. But yeah, so that has sort of been our weekend, and then today I have just I've been editing the dyeing tutorial, and then I have just sort of been hanging around, and I think now I'm going to make some banana bread because we have some bananas that are very brown and really need to get made into banana bread. So I mentioned before that I'm gluten-free, and so I've been playing around with finding a good gluten-free banana bread recipe, and I think I almost have it. So if I manage to tweak it today and have good results, I will probably post a link in the notes for this episode, plus like the changes that I've made. But yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do next, and then nom on some banana bread. But that's going to be it for me today. I think I've rambled on long enough. I apologize if this episode got really long. I really like to try and keep them an hour or less, so maybe if it does get too long, I'll do some editing. But yeah, that's going to be it, and I will see you guys on the next time I record, the 26th for me and the 28th for you guys. So see you later. Bye.